Hey, good afternoon. So what I want to talk about today is self-driving cars. And as just described, my background is in sightseeing technology. And this is what sightseeing technology looked like 100 years ago. If you were sightseeing in Berlin, this is what you would have. A lot of sightseeing is based on vehicles. So you can have tours that are vehicle-based, going from A to B to C, and you can also have hop-on, hop-off buses. All of this will be impacted by the upcoming change in cities, that is autonomous vehicles. But before we get on to those changes, what exactly is an autonomous car, and what do they look like? So the first key point is that they don't just have to be cars. When you talk to sightseeing operators, they always say to me, but we've got big buses and autonomous cars are small. And I say no, because you can have autonomous minibuses and autonomous buses just the same. So the example up here is in Estonia. That is an autonomous minibus. So you can have high-capacity autonomous vehicles. It doesn't just have to be small, family-sized units. So when we talk about autonomy, don't worry, I'm not going to go through this table. When we talk about autonomy, there are 5 different levels of autonomy that we all need to be aware of. So you might have some level in your own cars today. For example, your car might be able to self-park, or it may be able to drive along the motorway without you having to steer. But that is not what I talk about when we're talking about autonomous vehicles. What we're interested in is level 5 autonomous vehicles, and that is when we no longer have steering wheels in a car, and the vehicle can drive itself and decide, with no human interaction, how it's going to get from place to place. Now, when do we think autonomous vehicles are going to come in? Anyone got any guesses? Well, there's a few autonomous vehicles out there today already in our cities. If you go to Las Vegas, you can get an autonomous shuttle that will take you from the airport to your hotel on the Strip. So they're already out there in cities, but they're not everywhere. We expect, though, that autonomous vehicles will be the mainstream default option for local transit in 2027. And what this means is that anyone who is born after 2010 will never, ever drive a car. So, if you're still giving presents to your nephews and nieces and sons and daughters of toy cars, and they are born after 2010, now would be a good time to stop. Because they're going to be very upset when they get a little bit older and come to find out that they're never actually going to drive a car themselves. That is their face. So just keep that in mind. 2027 is when mainstream, this is a kind of a fairly agreed number between all the different car manufacturers that are out there working on these projects. They will be here earlier for specific use cases. So but for general usage in cities, we're about 8 or 9 years away. Now, it might surprise you that you think, well, this is kind of still quite a long way away, and is this really going to happen? Are people going to do this, yes or no? But companies are already, the large companies are already in this place investing in big hardware. So we've just had Uber buy 24,000 self-driving cars from Volvo for delivery in the next 3 years. And Alphabet, which is Google, has, via their Waymo company, has bought several thousand, no one knows the exact number, of Chryslers. So the hardware investments are coming in right now. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, this is never going to happen, or this is a long, 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 long way away, no, it isn't. These companies are making their investments now, and you can expect tens of thousands of these cars to be on the streets in by 2021, 2022. Even if Uber just put those cars in all the cities that they currently operate in, that would be 500 cars per city. Not a massive visible number like you would expect with regular cars, but in a large enough number that people will begin to see how these cars operate. So of course, once we've got all these cars on the streets, we're going to find new uses for them. And as I mentioned in my introduction, very much the largest part and delivery method of sightseeing in cities is to use a vehicle. And it's not just cities. If you buy a jungle tour in South America, what you're actually buying is that you're going to get picked up from your hotel in a vehicle, taken to the jungle, do a couple of hour walk, and then come back to your hotel. So the majority of sightseeing and local tours involve vehicles. So what is going to happen when we suddenly introduce, when I say suddenly, obviously over the next 10 years, what's going to happen when we introduce tens of thousands of autonomous vehicles? This will have a massive impact to what you think of as sightseeing today. And one of the largest impacts will be that you will be able to personalize a tour. At the moment, if you go and buy a tour from a mainstream sightseeing operation, unless they get 500 bookings a year, they'll just take that tour off their books and they will not operate that tour. Because you need a certain number of customers to make it viable. Because it costs money to create images, write itineraries, train tour guides, etc. So if you don't get 500 bookings, you just forget about it, and it's much better to have, for existing sightseeing companies, to have 50 tours that are well booked than to have 200 tours that only occasionally get bookings. But in the future, we're going to find that itineraries are digitally delivered. So you might find a tour, because there's no driver, the car is what's delivering the sightseeing experience. You don't need to have that many customers a year to make it viable. So a local sightseeing operator may move from having 50 tours that they currently market to 1,000 tours. And each of those tours only having 5 bookings a year. So that's going to radically change the technology requirements for distributing tours. It's going to change what you think of as a sightseeing experience. Because at the moment, you think of sightseeing and you think, oh, that's pretty mainstream, pretty boring. But they have to be, because that's the only way to make them viable. But in the future, you can have all these really weird and wonderful tours. So you might have a tour based around someone's favorite sports team or favorite music band, and you might go, hey, I'm really interested in this band, I'm going to go on a tour just designed around that. And at the moment, the only kind of people who have tours based around music is like Elvis, and we're going to be, you might find in the future that any band might be able to have, hey, this is my little sightseeing tour, you can go and see where we did our first gig, and you can go and see where we did this, and all this kind of stuff. So making things really niche and long tail is a massive change. But the other fundamental difference with autonomous vehicle sightseeing is that they can start at any time of the day. So you could be an American landing in Berlin, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're still on American time zone, and you're thinking, I want to go on a nightlife tour now. So you just get out of your hotel, find an autonomous vehicle, and you can go on a nighttime tour that immediately starts whenever you want. So you no longer have to think about scheduling tours. So you don't have to say, oh, this tour starts at 9 in the morning and this tour starts at 3 in the afternoon. These tours are on demand and can therefore operate at any moment in time. And I think that, that again will change how you look at it. Duration. Any tour can have whatever duration you choose. So you'll get into your vehicle and say, hey, I want a 2-hour tour. Or I want a 3-hour tour. Or I've only got quarter of an hour, just take me to this amazing viewpoint. So the duration no longer becomes an important part of booking a local tour and activity. And in fact, you can choose your, so for example, if you check out of your hotel at 10 o'clock in the morning and your flight is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you will be able to get out of your, you'll be able to say, hey, I just want a 2-hour tour now that finishes at the airport. And because the car knows what the traffic is and what the traffic will be, it can schedule that route that it's going to create and make sure that you do arrive at the airport within exactly the time that you need to arrive to catch your flight. So does this all sound pretty scary? Well, this is going to come in 5 years' time, right? So I know this sounds a little bit futuristic, but this is where we're all heading to. We're going to impact, if you think about existing tours and activities, it's going to impact tours much more than activities. Let me define that for you. So a tour in a city could go to multiple places. So when you buy a 4-hour experience in a city, you might go to the cathedral, you might go to the market, and you might go to a shopping street. And that is what the tour is. It's constructed out of multiple components. But when you buy a whitewater rafting tour, that is all it is. It's just the whitewater rafting. So if you are an activity provider, you probably don't need to be concerned too much about autonomous vehicles at this point, because your activities will be incorporated within an autonomous vehicle tour. However, if you are a city sightseeing operator and you create tours that go from A to B to C to D, that's exactly what autonomous vehicles is going to replace. Attractions are going to change as well. So at the moment, if you think about attractions, you have to park in a car park and then you walk to the visitors area. In the future, your autonomous vehicle is going to drop you outside of the entrance to an attraction. So if you're an attraction today and you're thinking, how do I design this space that is outside of my entry, my door entry, then you have to bear in mind that autonomous vehicles is going to shift the balance from how you currently have your arrival and how you may need it in the future. This is expensive architectural changes that need to happen at attractions. So this is going to take several years to happen. If you're building new attractions now, you have to ensure that your arrival area has been designed for autonomous vehicles rather than how it currently is set up. You're not going to park your car necessarily with a human. The car's going to go off once it's dropped you off. The car's going to go and park itself. So attraction car parks can be much further away from the entrance area than they currently are. And you expect to see, like this in New York today, you can expect to see much more stacked kind of car park solutions than these big wide spaces that we currently have. And the reason that is because humans are not getting in and out of the car in the car park. The humans are getting out of the car at the entrance to the attraction. It's going to change hotels too, in a variety of ways. So one of them is concierges, or whatever replaces concierges. The digital equivalent of concierges. One of the hardest things to do is to communicate from the concierge to a guest where they should go. Where is that restaurant the concierge is suggesting? Where should they go? But here, with this new model, because the car is following a digitally created route, the concierge will be very easily be able to say to the car, go and take this customer to this place. So it opens up a whole new range of commercial opportunities for hotels, because the hotel can now act as the advisor for where that guest should go and ensure that that is delivered properly. It's also going to change hotels because at the moment they don't sell multi-day, multi-hotel stops. But you could take an autonomous car and you could go from one city to another city to another city, and the car can drive you between all the places. So if you are a hotel chain, this introduces new possibilities to link up all your hotels in interesting ways. And again, this all sounds quite futuristic, but this is only 5 years away. So let's come on to technology. Just to have a little bit of a think on a technology basis, how we're going to do this, and what are we going to do here. Now, who remembers this phone? Anyone can remember this phone? Hands up. Did anyone actually have one of these phones? Right, okay. So we are now moving into the realms of quite challenging future technology discussion, but we are now moving as far ahead as this is behind. So if you think of the changes that happened between this phone and the phone that you have in your pocket today, that is how far ahead we're now having to project in terms of technology. So that was only, that was about 12 years ago. So if you think now, oh, okay, how are we going to work out what technology is going to be in 12 years' time? That shows you some of the challenges today of building sightseeing technology for autonomous vehicles, because we don't even know what a phone's going to be. We don't even know if people are going to have a phone. It might be back on their watch. It may not be on their watch. It may be a chip in their hand, all sorts of weird things. But we don't know that, and that's what makes the next bit, what I'm talking about, slightly challenging, because we don't quite know where we're going on technology. But one of the key areas, and where everyone is focused on right now, is the car being able to see objects. That's not what I do, but that's where all the money and all the investment from the car manufacturers is today. There's about 17 car manufacturers who have got multi-billion-dollar self-driving car programs. There's a lot of money coming into this. And they're all focused on this problem on the left, which is how can you tell what's coming towards you? Is that a car? Is that a dog? Is it a bicycle? And what should you do about it? So that's called LiDAR. The image on the right is just an explanation. Computers are really bad at understanding what is something and what they think is something else. Even me as a human, especially on this screen, I can't tell the difference if one of those is a muffin or a dog. But anyway, computers really struggle doing that, which is why they ask humans to do it. This is the big challenge. This is what is causing why it's actually taking 10 years to get self-driving cars coming, is because they're having to get computer vision up to a level that makes it possible for the car to understand what it is that's in front of them. But the other challenge that we've got with this sector is we don't have enough data. So data is always the kind of the technologist's problem, which is you can invent a technology, but if you don't know what the data is, then that creates problems. So we need a whole new set of data here. So for example, we need to know where a car should go if they're driving to an attraction. Because what you can't do is have 100 cars all try and drive into the same parking spot. So cities have got big challenges with working out how to manage oversupply of autonomous vehicles at their main attractions. And if you think that's bad enough today with human taxi drivers and human tour vehicle drivers, then what is it going to be like when you've got Uber competing with Airbnb, competing with Expedia to all make sure that their customers get the best spots next to the attraction? So there's a lot of data, a lot of challenges around that we all need to get our heads around, which I'm beginning to work on at the moment as an interesting problem. But talking about data, one of the this is also one of the reasons why flying cars, you won't hear that too often at ITB this year, flying cars actually are going to be here before autonomous cars. And the reason for that is because there is less to hit. So the cities don't need to have data for where the car is going to be and what it's going to crash into, because the flying cars are going to go between flying pad to another flying pad to another flying pad. So flying cars are going to be here before autonomous cars. So that's kind of interesting. Uber's got a really interesting project called Uber Elevate, which if you want to go and see what a technologist thinks about flying cars, that's kind of a worthwhile video to go and watch. But I should also just remind people that we already, even in 2018, already have flying cars. We just didn't quite expect it to be a Tesla going to Mars. So flying cars are here. And that's it, really. I just wanted to, that was a roundup of what I think about autonomous vehicles and autonomous vehicle sightseeing. I have written a white paper that you can download. Well, you can either find that link, or if you just Google those words, you will find the white paper. That goes into much greater detail as to all the things that I've just outlined. It includes day tours, multi-day tours, attractions, tour activity distribution, personalization, all these kind of all these elements are in that white paper. So you can go and freely download it. As I said, either work out what that URL is, or if you just Google that, it will come up, you'll find it. So with that, I just want to say thank you. And any questions?
First, a nice round of applause. And some questions. Does anybody have any questions regarding the whole topic? It's something that is rather... there you go, the first question. Here, there's a microphone that's coming to you right now.
Thank you. Just one question. In regards to automation, how is that going to handle towable vehicles like caravans, trailers? When we look at millions of caravans around the world in regional tourism, what do we see the future of that?
Yeah, well, the two examples, there's two ways of answering that. The first is, I don't think autonomy is going to hit rural areas at the same time as cities. And you'll find things like caravans is very much a rural issue rather than a city issue. But what I also expect to see is autonomous, and I can't even get this word, autonomous camper vans. So you can go on a tour for multiple days. You don't need to be towing something, but you'll be sleeping in the vehicle that you will be staying with. But autonomous sightseeing is very much a city concern. So you'll see this in cities first. Rural, driving down coastal roads for multiple days, I expect that will be much later. In fact, the demand for that may even go up, because humans are not driving cars during their regular life. And so they'll be going, oh, I love driving a car, I remember driving a car, I want to go back and do this. So they'll go on a 5-day experience driving a car. Much like horses. Horses used to be commodity transport, and they are now a luxury. Cars are, that was a sort of a horse noise, that was pretty cool. Cars are commodity transport now, and potentially may become a luxury going forwards. So I think you'll see the same as, think about horses.